So we're live on the first podcast ever for Empirical Training.
Yeah,
Very cool, to be fair, isn't it?
this has been a long time coming, isn't it?
Look at us now.
Time coming.
Almost a year later.
Yeah, man. So I guess what we're going to do for this first 4 podcasts, an introduction to ourselves, where we grew up, a bit of a breakdown of our journey, how we got into cybersecurity, and then I think we're going to break it into 4 pods, right? That's like if we can stretch it out.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we can talk that long.
Hard cut to like 20 minutes in and we've just completely finished and we're like, right, what should we do now then?
Yeah. It's like that 1 minute in, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's going to be a bit all over the place because this is our first podcast, but every podcast started off.
We'll look back at these and laugh, we will.
Yeah, if you check the stats, even actually Joe Rogan's was pretty good, wasn't it, to be fair? At the very, very beginning, it was just him in his room, like interviewing his mates, getting pissed.
What is it now?
But we're not getting pissed up on this one, but we might do it.
Yeah.
Might do a drunk pod.
He's kind of stayed true to that format.
He's just in a basement now,
Yeah,
taking
he's
mushrooms.
moved on from booze.
Yeah, exactly.
But even more interested.
Right. Who wants to step up to the hockey then and started it off?
Right.
Right, I don't mind. I don't mind talking about how I got into cybersecurity.
Yeah, go on, AJ. Go right back to the beginning then. Obviously, you don't have to give away too much information about like exactly where you live. Don't give out your postcode or anything. But...
Yeah, I've always thought that because we do a cybersecurity kind of page, and you kind of try and not give away too much information, and then people see us and they're like, "Do you actually work in cybersecurity?" Because you're giving away like you live in Cardiff, like that. But we've got to be.
I still remember being in the SOC. People wouldn't even put a picture of their face up anywhere, would they? They'd hide themselves behind a book. Even if we put this podcast out, people are still they're gonna accuse us of being AI still. So they're not gonna think we're real.
It's funny you say that. Somebody messaged on TikTok and thought I was AI, and I said no, I'm not AI, and they said that's what AI would say, and I was like, what do you want from me? I'm just
you can't win.
I'm trying to help you get into cybersecurity. What do you want from me?
I know.
But, I mean, if we make an AI pod that can do our job done.
But yeah, I came from a little town in Carmarthenshire. I won't give away the town because it's quite a small town, and you're probably able to find my family. I know there's some creeps out there. We know you are. You message us now and again, and we're going to talk about those messages at some point as well. But yeah, so I went to a school and studied. I did at A-levels. I did business and IT. I also did computing as well, but I was terrible at coding, so I dropped it. And I just focused on business and IT and did Welsh back. If then you are listening from England, you won't know what Welsh back is, but it got me into university. It's basically an A for filling out, basically just filling out documentation. So I did that, and then I went to uni and did business information systems, which again was basically just business and IT. The first year wasn't great. It was mostly like how to use Excel, how to use Word, just kind of continuing on with what IT was at A-level. So nothing that sophisticated really. The business side of it again wasn't as sophisticated. So it did kind of get me thinking that I'd picked a really terrible degree. But then I did a networking module then, computer networking, and I really enjoyed it. But there was a tiny part of security. I'm talking about 10 minutes, and the lecturer went through Google Dorking, and I thought it was one of the coolest things ever. And I used to work for an estate agent in this small town, and I put in their website, and it returned back an Excel sheet that had all of their customer information, all of the prices that the houses that they'd sold them for. I know you can find that information, but not the customer information. I thought it was one of the most amazing things ever. Like I couldn't believe that was publicly available on the internet. And I'd effectively done my first type of hack. And I thought, well, this is pretty cool. And I have to give a shout out to my lecturer because he said to me, he goes, I think you should focus on that for your dissertation. I didn't know anything about security, but he gave me that idea then and told me to run with it. So then that's what I did then. I created a penetration testing report for this company for my dissertation. And that's what got me into security. I still haven't read it back. I need to read it back. It was basically assessing their security of their network and providing insights into how they can improve it, and then mapping that to kind of how small businesses at that time didn't have the same kind of budgets as large businesses, same as they do today, and kind of try and give them ideas of how they could protect themselves. But that was the basis
Andy,
of what
did
built
you?
my
I
interest.
was really
in
interested. You
cybersecurity.
said you haven't read it in a while, so you might not know the answer. But what did you find?
Yeah.
Is that PII breach that you found in the first thing, data leakage?
Yeah, so a lot of it was like, that was one of the biggest things. So I actually informed them in year 2 of uni about that, but I asked, it wasn't obviously until year 3 that you do the dissertation. So I asked, I told their IT department, which is one guy, I think you need to take this off. And so he did, but they said that I was able to use it for my dissertation, but obviously I had to blank out all the data. But out of what I found, I would say it was kind of just like, they had like an FTP server that was just running. The password was the password of the company. You could tell they had no policies in place for employees clicking on links. Like a lot of their hosts were just infected with just random malware, and they didn't have any antivirus solutions. It was like quite bad. Like it was basically they didn't really care about anything. And like the only test that they were doing was this one IT guy would send them like one phishing email, and like everybody in the company would click on it. I say everybody in the company, it's like 10 people, you know, so very, very small company.
Phishing training done. I sent the email out.
Yeah, it's like phishing training done. Yeah, and there wasn't anything in the bad, of the sense that like the malware that was on there was more just like rudimentary malware. It was just like malware, adware and stuff like that. Yeah, there was nothing major, and I obviously didn't know what I was doing at the time, so I could see that this antivirus solution had flagged. I also run Nessus. I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing, and I was running it on these computers that were like old as hell, like Windows before Windows XP. Like the server that they had there was so old that I was trying to install Nessus, and I was trying to run it across their network and stuff, and it was just bringing back all of these vulnerabilities that were all like critical. But the main thing was like default username and passwords. Walking in and the passwords are all stuck on the desktop for logging in and stuff. I shouldn't diss, because it's actually my mum that works
I wondered if you were going to mention that. I wasn't going to drop you in it.
I had to drop her in it. I had to go in, and then that's the thing. I made the recommendations, but then I also went back there to make sure that they'd actually gone ahead with and made the changes, which they did do.
But that can be really difficult, right?
And yeah, that was
at any level, trying to get people, IT admins, execs, anyone to actually action when you find security risks without it actually being, a catastrophic breach. They don't really want to hear about it. So was it only because it was your mum that she listened? And how did you manage to get them to believe this uni kid who didn't have cybersecurity?
Yeah, and were they worried as well? Like, what was the sentiment?
Well, they were worried when they saw that Excel spreadsheet, because there was a lot of customer information in there that was spanning back like 2 years. So there's names, addresses of where these people lived before they bought the houses, the offers that they originally put in, and then the offer that got accepted. And you can see that anyway on like Rightmove, but the offer that they put in before, so you could kind of see a lot of personal information about them. So they were worried in the sense of, when they saw that, they took that down immediately. But again, it wasn't really, like I said, you're using the same password across every computer, like all your employees have got the same passwords. It was just like, yeah, we'll just change it, thanks for letting us know. It wasn't like, they didn't take it that seriously. And again, at the same time, I didn't take it that seriously, because I didn't know how impactful that was, to be honest. Like I was just starting out, and the only cybersecurity that I knew was what I was learning to do the dissertation. So that's kind of what, that's how it started. And then I used that then to get my job in my first company. I don't know if we're going to mention company names yet. I don't think.
Let's
start with. I'm sure you can find it out somewhere. Yeah, I was thinking that. So I was basically a managed service company, SOC analyst, and I used the experience from my dissertation then to be able to get that job. And I failed so many interviews. So I know there's people out there trying to get their first job. I'm talking about like 20, 30 interviews, just failed them absolutely. Just I got wrecked. For the same company, I did 3 interviews until I got in. So I basically brute forced the interview process until I got into the phase where
desperate.
I was sitting down with somebody. Yeah, they were desperate.
Were you getting any feedback, Jones?
Well, it was just like, the first stage interview where it was a phone interview, and it was kind of like the basic cybersecurity questions, like what is a brute force attack and stuff like that. I didn't know a dictionary, explain what a dictionary attack is, or the difference between those. And you all know the recruiter who it was in that company. He basically just said, just need to do more research and kind of come back. So it wasn't, I knew what it was. It was just, I needed to understand the basics of those questions. And so
was it every time you were like, could you repeat that question, please? And then you just noted it down for next time.
Yeah, it was, especially the second time, because I knew as soon as I picked up the call, I was so nervous that I was like, I'm already going to fuck this up. I already know that I'm going to fuck it up. So I was like, oh, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. And I think I apologized so much to him at the end. I was like, I'm so sorry for wasting your time. But then, so I kept applying, and then
wait. Before you say the next bit, what other job did you get? Because I know that you after trying a few times, you started to look at other alternatives, other plans, and probably a completely different direction for your life.
Yeah, so I was going to become a bus driver. While I was going to study for my master's degree in Cardiff, actually. So I knew that I needed to specialize in cybersecurity, because my business and IT degree, even though I had the dissertation, I didn't think it was enough. So then my family on my dad's side all comes from a bus driving family, so I've spent years and years around buses. It's not completely random, but it's still pretty random.
Be one secure bus.
I reckon on some of your posts now, the audience are going to start putting bus emojis.
Yeah.
Just commenting loads of bus emojis. Please spam the comments, whoever's watching this, and put some bus emojis in.
You've been a great bus driver, though, Andy. The world really lost out there.
Yeah, I think they really did.
I remember actually going down to Cardiff Bus, and it's another weird one. I applied just to be a bus driver. So I'd passed the theory. I just needed the other part of the license, which my dad said he would put me through. But he goes, if you go down Cardiff Bus and they'll pay for it, then go and do that instead. So I thought, yeah, fair enough. So I went down there, and when I'd filled in the application for this simple bus driver job, I went into so much detail about how much I knew about buses and the industry. And they were like, we've never had an application like this, ever. Are you sure this is what you want to do? You just got a degree. Now you want to just become a bus driver. And they instead of putting me into the bus driver job, they put me towards this like internship that they had in Cardiff Bus. So I had to go down there and do like an internship day to become like a manager in Cardiff Bus. I was like, oh, I just want to be a bus driver. They were like, oh,
you just wanted to drive the buses, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to drive the buses. So eventually I didn't get through to that internship, and they wouldn't take me on as a bus driver because I only wanted it part-time to do my uni degree on the side. But obviously I couldn't tell them that, because it was like, well, you're only coming here just to get a job and just to pass your degree and then go in, which is the truth.
So was that a master's you were going to do, right?
They wouldn't
after
take me
the business thing.
Yeah, master's in business information systems at Cardiff Met, and then I was going to do masters in cybersecurity.
So it was still cybersecurity. You weren't going to be a bus driver forever.
No. I knew once I did my dissertation that cybersecurity was the place I wanted to go, but I just didn't really know how to get there. And I saw this degree, and I thought, well, if I do that degree, then that's going to give me some kind of like experience that it looks like, oh, this guy has done cybersecurity. It's on his CV. He's going to go for it. So I actually I applied for it. I went to uni on the first day, got given a student card, and then I actually got through to the second stage of the managed service company SOC position. And I got through to the third stage, and I got the job. So I had to give up the course, and I went down that path instead.
Just before you move on in the story, AJ, from all of your experiences with the different interviews, was there any common trends that you saw between them with the questions that were being asked?
Yeah, I would say at that time they were all exactly the same. That's why I was able to brute force it. They were all the first. Well, I shouldn't say brute force it, but that is effectively what I did. But it's just learning things that you don't know and just becoming good enough, right, to be able to pass the interviews really. But the common trends that I know, repetition, yeah, and that's what I've always done. It's always just been repeat. And the common trends were at the time, they were just kind of like basic cybersecurity questions, like what's the difference and networking, like what's TCP versus IP, what's dictionary attack versus brute force attack. It didn't really go into in-depth into like the major attacks at that time, like SQL injection and things like that were quite common.
Even that same question answered on the 20th interview, you're going to be a lot better positioned and a lot more confident and a lot more composed as in regards to like, or in comparison to the first ever time that you were asked that question, because you're nervous, all the anxiety's building up, and you can't really perform and you can't be natural. But if you've done it 20 times, then you're going to feel a lot more confident and composed.
And if you were coming away from sorry, AJ, go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say, and if you're coming away from the interviews doing the correct like post prep to a degree, which it sounds like you were doing, you're researching these questions that they're asking and actually learning the knowledge ready for the next interview then.
Yeah, exactly. So like I say, I make it sound like I was just brute forcing it, like you just keep giving the answers, but it wasn't that. Like I started to understand the material, and then, like you said, started to understand the questions and actually how to answer them. So it definitely helped. And I think there's a lot of people who are looking to get into cybersecurity that, or any job really, that they might give up after the first 2 or 3 interviews. But genuinely, it must have been at least 20. Well, I must have applied for at least 100 jobs. After 100 jobs, maybe like 20 of them came back, failed the interviews a lot of times, and then it just happened with this managed service company that got in there eventually.
That's what I think a lot of people need to hear as well, because a lot of people, I imagine, trying to get into the industry get so disheartened by no response. You haven't got an interview sort of response, and to hear from someone that's in the industry that they've gone through the exact same thing is reassuring, I bet.
Yeah, and people give up as well. Like if they complete like 4 interviews for a specific niche in an industry and then they don't get anywhere and they don't get any joy, then they just think, I'll just go work down the local supermarket or go work for my family business, or just go and pick or just drive a bus.
Drive a bus.
the least path to resistance. It's like just persevere a little bit longer and keep going, and you will eventually get to where you want to go.
Yeah, because when you're getting no responses from interview job requests, that's when you're at your lowest and you think nothing's going your way. But like you're saying, Rob, it's that perseverance to get through it. When you're not seeing any results is when champions are made, essentially.
Yeah, it's a mindset, isn't it? It's like, I will get a cybersecurity job. It's not if, it's when. Yep. And if you just keep going until it happens, that's the right frame of mind to be in the whole time you're trying to get a job.
And that's what it was like for me. January 2015, I didn't go down the bus route. I actually went to work for it was kind of a network, not quite network engineer, and I was like setting up computers in an IT training center. And it was an okay job, to be fair. Like the people were amazing there, but it was like there was no windows to the office. It was quite dark. It wasn't the happiest place to be. But like you say, it's a stepping stone to move on to something else. And I knew in January, I said, I'm really enjoying this dissertation. Cybersecurity, or I guess it was called more computer security back in like 2015. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And like you say, it's a mindset thing. I was like, I'm going to get into cybersecurity. But it just happened that I did it 9 months after that instead of maybe 2 years after, Like if I didn't get the job, I would have gone to do that degree. And then I would have figured out what to do after that, or figured out what to do in the meantime. But yeah, so anybody who's looking for a job, it does take time.
I think you did the right thing there, and taking some time to get experience on your belt. People always say it's easier to get a job when you've already got one. When you haven't got one and you're just interviewing, it can be really demoralizing. I think we all kind of had that period straight after uni, and you are eyeing up the supermarket or something in the meantime. So something with some relevant experience is always great. And I think you said about failing
Mhm.
lots. I know because I applied maybe a year or so later into cybersecurity, and Andy was super helpful having had that experience to actually pass it down to me. And I know it's something he does for our community members all the time to kind of share these experiences and let you know how to approach it. But you've talked about failing a lot. The kind of, I think it's a tech test you're kind of applying there. Just to be clear, the first stage they want, even if they see in your CV, they also want to validate your knowledge, because not all uni courses are the same. You can get a cert, you can forget about it. They just want to have a bit of general questions of where your current understanding is, so that they know you haven't just kind of bluffed your way to where you currently are. But then once you got past that, Andy, can you tell us a bit more about, you called it the third interview? I think I'd like to call that more the character interview.
Yeah. Josh is exactly right. So the first stage is a tech test, and it's the tech test exactly that I was failing at. The second stage then is they get you in, they bring you into the office, and they ask you technical based questions, some kind of how you would deal in certain situations, for example, kind of customer service. And then the third one is kind of a character interview, which you sometimes think that you've got the job, but there's another story for another time, but I applied for Monzo and got to the third stage character interview, and I was like, I'm definitely getting this. I didn't get it. So once you get to that stage, don't think that you've got it, because you might not. It was
It's okay.
That's the second time that you've said.
Is it? Oh, okay. We'll have to bleep that out.
we can actually bleep it out though.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll bleep it out for now, just in case. But yeah, once I got into the third stage interview, then it was just a character-based interview, and that was quite a fun place. It was always a fun place to be, and you could tell in the interview it was kind of like, if you were going to be a superhero, who would you be, and things like that. And I think I picked Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man.
Nice.
And we kind of just got on. It was kind of more of a conversation, and I was asking the two interviewers about themselves. They were asking me about myself and things like that. And I started to feel quite comfortable with them. That's when I've noticed that usually if I've got a job, it's usually if I get to that stage and I'm feeling quite comfortable with the people that I'm talking to, that then it kind of leads into potential success.
Spider-Man surfing the web for threats. Yeah. That's how you pull it around to make it relevant. Robbie and Vaughan.
Yeah. I didn't actually think of that.
Robbie and Vaughan, you guys are hiring managers, right? Because I think I didn't realize how much the character interview kind of is important until I started to interview people myself and or help out with interviews, and realize that actually that is a core bit of what they're looking for. Not only does this person know enough and have the right skills, can they apply them on a daily basis? Will they fit into my team, or are they going to add to it, or are they going to bring it down? Like, what's your experience been with hiring people for that?
Yeah, for me, it's about attitude, it's about aptitude, and like you can learn things. It doesn't necessarily define you if you only have a specific like subset of knowledge in a particular area. Like everybody's got their own niche skills within cybersecurity as well. That's something that a lot of people don't really know. They think if you're breaking into the cybersecurity industry, you have to literally learn everything, but you don't necessarily. You can kind of go into your own lane and become a bit of a subject matter expert. But yeah, for me again, and like Vaughan's been on countless interviews with me at the same time, and we do look into like characteristics for a person, like their personality traits, the way they carry themselves on the interview, what they're passionate about, even as like small intricate things like, I don't know, like how can you demonstrate that you're punctual or that you care about a specific topic? It doesn't even have to be cybersecurity. They could be really saying like, I'm passionate about gaming and this is how passionate I am. Like I'm doing X, Y, Z, and I'm managing games online and all this sort of
we've
stuff.
had people running like Minecraft servers, and that just goes to show that they have these abilities to kind of maneuver and look after and be accountable in certain situations, which is definitely helpful in the hiring process.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you have to have a certain amount of technical capabilities within the cybersecurity niche. Like if you literally fail all of the questions on the interview, but then your character is like top notch, then I think that would be pushing the boat a little bit out. to bring somebody on that's like really, really struggling technically. So you've got to strike that balance. But yeah, we're definitely looking for people that are driven, that are passionate, that are dedicated, motivated, like resilient, and can demonstrate that. But they don't have to demonstrate it by showcasing their ability in cybersecurity. There's plenty of ways to like showcase that, and like transferable skills are everything. Like you can that's like such a big skill to take something that you're doing and then show how it transfers into this new role that you're going into, and you can be super creative with that.
Yeah.
Do you ever see it the other way, where you get somebody who's over technical, but not over technical, they're extremely technical, but they get to the character interview and you don't feel like
for sure. We've definitely hired people, interview people in the past that have absolutely nailed the tech test. They know everything about everything. They've gone into really specific detail, the sort of thing you want to see from a candidate. But personality wise, maybe how they would integrate into the team, it's just not there. Like the way the team dynamic is, the sort of role they would move into, it would probably cause more friction than benefit to that degree. Maybe they're not very good at working with other people from the sort of questions we've asked. One of the main things I'm looking for with my interview questions is trying to understand the mindset of the person and how they would fit into the team. How they fit into the team is probably one of the biggest things to me compared to the technical skills. As Robbie's saying, there is elements where you need a certain level of technical aptitude, but there's no real cookie cutter approach really. One of the things that we used to ask in the interviews was, have you got any skills that our SOC might not have already? And one of the things we're looking for with that question is how they think outside the box, because obviously they don't know who's in our SOC, they don't know the skills that they have. So we're looking for them to be in that sort of mindset where they're happy to display their own personal skills and understanding of niche topics really. And like I mentioned earlier, we have people saying they run Minecraft servers, so they're a bit more aptitude to like managerial sort of positions and accountability and project managing sort of things.
That's a great point. Sorry to cut you off. Like if somebody has done like a project management role in the past, then they could be like, that's a skill that I can bring to the table, because like every SOC needs service improvement and needs a project management structure and timeline. And a lot of techie people don't want to worry about that. They don't want to be creating and maintaining and managing Trello boards. They just want to be given a task, crack on with it, and they'd be more than happy for somebody to step in and like take up that type of role in the team.
And it just depends on what type of team you're moving into as well. Every SOC is different and they have different requirements at the time of recruiting. So, if you don't get a job, it's not to say you're never going to get a job. You might just not fit into the environment that they're looking for at the moment. We've been hiring for positions where we're able to bring in a more junior analyst that isn't quite technical, because we have some strong other employees and other analysts that can pass their knowledge down. And there might be situations where the junior that's left was relatively technical. So we're looking to bring in a technical junior that's on the verge of maybe a SOC analyst role, a level 1 role, so to say. So yeah, don't get disheartened if you don't get a role, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of different dynamics that go into place. And one of the main things you need to do is just try and convey your character. Let them know, I have the aptitude to learn. I'm willing to work on things. I might not know something in this area, but I'm definitely willing to go and adventure that if it's going to help bring the team up and get us towards that end goal.
I think that's super valuable for both of you. Like that was the biggest feeling I had when I first went, was that fear of, I don't know enough. I should know this. I don't. I have to know everything. And people kind of give off an air that they do know everything. And the more you do it, the more you realize that nobody, even the veterans, will call a junior analyst in to get their opinion on something that's brand new, because it's almost like a good leveler. When something's new come in, everyone kind of starts from square zero, and your experience is relevant. But I think Vaughan, you said, what was it, Robbie? What can you add to the team that you might already have? It's that diversity of analysis. The more different ways you have of thinking, the more backgrounds you have together, then you reach that better outcome if you're able to work as a team. Because if you're going to work on your own, you have to be an absolute wizard. And to be honest, they normally tend to be on the darker side of what we do, right? The people who don't like to work well in an office environment with others.
And it is
and prep that as well. Like write that down. Like like write your skills and your transferable skills. And this sounds silly, but some people don't even do it. They don't write down their strengths and honest weaknesses or things that are good about them. Like when Vaughan and I are on interviews, we say, describe how, say how your previous employer or your current employer would describe you as a person. And then some of them are a little bit stumped and they're like, and I'm like, how have you not prepped that question? That's like everyone asks it in a roundabout way. Everyone's trying to like put their own little flavor on the question, but like, yeah, like write it down. Like it's so simple, but if you've got it there, like no one cares if you're referring to a sheet that's to the left of you. It shows that you've put in that due diligence and you've put in some effort to actually smash the interview.
So Andy, we talked a lot about how you first got into cybersecurity, and I think that's really interesting to hear that jump, because it wasn't the most obvious of pathways for you. But now we're in your first cybersecurity job. Can you just like take us through some of the key points and where you today?
Yeah, so started off in mainly a log analysis team. Might be giving it too much praise, but it was a really good place to start. Like at the time, it was mostly just reviewing kind of CSV files, trying to figure out if something is malicious or not. And it was very much based around Windows event logs, was a lot of what we were looking into, database logs and things like that. But that was kind of where I actually started and did that for about 2 years. So quite basic log analysis, but as time went on, and still to this day, I still believe that it was extremely important experience, which I'll get back to. So I moved then into the network detection team. So we're reviewing web application attacks. So basically how it works, if nobody's aware of a managed service company, it's effectively a company that takes care of the security for other companies. That you'll approach them, you'll say, I need my website to be looked after. Do you have X to protect it? Yes. And then once it's gone through the onboarding stage, the analyst then will be reviewing the logs from those appliances. And the logs that I were effectively looking at were network IDS logs, which were there to detect malicious attacks against their website. So I did that for another year then. We can go into detail of how that works another time, I think, but it's effectively you're looking at the request, seeing the response. Is there any signs of the attack has been successful? If it has, call the customer up and let them know what's happened, and also talk them through what has happened. So I did that for about, I'd say another year. I was in that managed service company for around about 3 years. And then a good friend of mine in the managed service company was moving to London, and he'd managed to secure an internal security analyst position for a financial services company up in London. And he asked me if I wanted to go up. And at the time, I wasn't sure. Again, like going back to not thinking I had enough experience, the way that he was describing the job was a really big change. In terms, well, what I thought anyway. Like you always think that things are going to
shout out Yanis as well, by the way, if he ever listens to this. What a guy!
Yeah. So that's kind of, and that's something that we need to go back to. Is Yanis, I fucking love you. He's like you need something. You need somebody to be there, like basically your sensei and basically your master as you're going through cybersecurity. With anything really, but especially in cybersecurity, because like you say, like Josh mentioned, when you first went into the company, it's feeling as if you don't know everything or you don't know a certain thing, and people give off this kind of aura that they know everything, which is not true. But then you need people who are down to earth, technical, but again very personal, and that's Yanis was one of those people to be. And
a great shout out to finding a mentor.
Yeah, and he's such a great spirit as well, Yanni, man. Yeah. Like he'd always be running about the office, cracking jokes. He was like naming the plants, wasn't he? Like, name the plants after like one of the lads that was working there, and then like PlayStation 3 or something. The plant was called. He was such a funny geezer, and anyone that knew came into the team, he would give them these like initiation questions. Do you remember? It was like, if you were, what was it? If you were a kitchen appliance, what would you be?
Yeah.
Or if you were a food, what would you be? Yeah.
He was fantastic. He was really amazing guy like that. And that's what, like the guys were saying, Yanis is an extremely technical guy, but on the scale of being able to explain it to you in such a simple way. So he was in that log review team with me for about a year and a half. He moved over to the network IDS team. And as soon as I went over there, because there was always this kind of aura that if you were doing the log analysis team, you'd find it really difficult to do the network IDS stuff. Like it was never really explained.
The step up, wasn't it? That team was like, it seemed unattainable to
even
some.
just the room.
And that's what was mentioned.
The room was like a bit like NASA.
Yeah, even the room.
So it just felt intimidating. It had its own separate door, separate keypad. You had to go in there, and everyone's in those kind of cylindrical, the kind of semicircle desks, all facing this big giant screen where live attacks pop up. You know, we're used to reviewing the last 24 hours of logs.
Pop it up on the screen.
And the lights were off most of the time, and there genuinely was people with their hoods up.
All sat with hoodies
down. It was like 16 degrees in there. Everyone was shivering because Ray liked the aircon on really low.
And then and then on the screen, attack pops up, and then there's 15-minute timer starts. You've got 15 minutes to analyze this attack and make sure it's successful.
And everyone's screaming.
It's getting down to 1 minute. And then he closes it off. But the Yanis was in that team then before I got there, and he sat down with me on the first day. And he was like, "Man, this is not even that hard." And I was like, "Well, but everybody's made out like it's really hard." He's like, "Fuck it, man. No, there's no." He's Greek, by the way. He's like, "Fuck this, man. No. This is easy. It's easy." I was like, "Show me then," and it was like it just was information that you didn't know. And I think that is the main thing that I just didn't know how to analyze those events. And he sat me down, he showed me, and he goes, "Look, this is this, this is this." And he helped me a lot.
And it can be daunting as well, I imagine, going into somewhere where you don't know the information, but having that kind of guide in the sort of situation that you can rely on. Again, coming back to our mentor analogy is definitely something to help reassure you and take some of that stress away.
Definitely. And that's so he moved up to London then, because there wasn't many opportunities for cybersecurity companies other than this one in Cardiff. So he moved up there and he referred me. So again, that's another thing in the industry that goes back to being personable. If you can make some friends in this company that you're working in, they might move somewhere else where there's a better opportunity. And if you've got to know them and they understand that your work ethic is good and that you just generally get on with them, there's a chance that they might refer you and bring you over to that opportunity. And it's exactly what Yanis did.
On that point, I will probably talk about it on my section of the pod, but I just recently quit my corporate job to focus full-time on empirical training, and I quit in the summer. But about 3 weeks ago, somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn who I'd worked with previously, and he's the head of sales, like the big dog at a newly formed cybersecurity company. And he said, "Hey, I know you're starting your own business and you've stepped away from your previous corporate role. We're looking for somebody to just come in temporarily on a contract consulting basis. It's really flexible. It's literally 1 day a week. Here's the day rate. It's really good money." And just because I'd worked somewhere else, done really good work, been like polite, like open, like, do you know what I mean? Like been a really nice person and been hardworking in the company, I've been handed a really easy, and it's not easy, but I've been handed just a really cool and like useful opportunity just because I was nice and I worked hard and I put the effort in. And it's a small industry in the grand scheme of things, really.
Definitely.
Like even like we're in the UK, but even if you work in the US and you're looking for a job and you work at a specific company and then someone goes somewhere else, like everyone's working remotely and everyone's gunning for the same roles. And like what you're talking about there, like it's such a small place, so you can get referrals, get jobs super easy.
Yeah, networking is definitely massive. Sorry, AJ, just to hit that point on with how small of an industry it is. When I was in university, there was a lad on my course, and then in my first job there was another guy that was working there, and then in my second job role there's another guy from there. They're all now at the same company working together, and I still chat to them and stuff. So it just goes to show how small of an industry it actually is.
And this is something we're trying to do to not just people we immediately know and meet, right? With Empirical, the reason we have that Discord, the reason we're trying to connect people with recruiters or other people who are looking to hire that we know, because it does. Going back to that, talk about the character assessment. You have maybe an hour to do that in an interview, whatever. If somebody can vouch for somebody, then it puts you a few steps ahead. I don't want to advocate for nepotism, but it means it's easier to assess when somebody else knows them, and you kind of have that level of trust. But Andy, we're at the big bank. That's where you're working now. Where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so I was at that bank for 3 years. I was there, and obviously 2 years of that was actually during COVID. So I was up in London for only a year after moving from Cardiff. I think it was like the biggest move ever. And I ended up only being there for about 12 to 18 months. COVID hit, came back, and I was working from my girlfriend.
We're going to make a Wuhan joke, but never mind.
Just quickly before you move on, can you talk about your shift pattern? Because I think that was a really obscure working schedule, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So when I was at Barclays, then I was a SOC analyst, but I would say it was probably a bit more senior. I wasn't called a senior, but the work that we were doing effectively the same. Basically and again, this was very kind of like NASA-esque, like you're walking into this bank and it's all in the middle of the bank. You can't really see out the windows, the big screens on the walls and everything, and effectively analyzing events, trying to determine if they're malicious and escalated, and kind of trying to resolve any of those threats. But because of that, they need to be 24/7, 365. So for that reason, and a lot of SOCs will probably expect you to do some kind of shift pattern when you start out. We did it in the managed service company, and then I did it in the bank as well. But the bank wasn't too bad. I had to do night shifts, which they kind of rough, kind of not. It depends how you see it. But it started off as it was like 3 days on, 3 days off, 2 days in, 2 days off, 4 nights in, 4 days off, 3 nights in, 6 days off. So it was a weird kind of shift pattern, but you could have a lot of time off.
Yeah, how did they even decide that? Jeez.
I don't know. That's how it was before they hired out teams in India and the US. It was only analysts in the UK doing it, so that's how they decided to cover the shift pattern. But they were trying to do it to kind of not let the analysts get burnt out by giving them enough time off to kind of recoup after the nights, and also have enough staff in during the nights, which obviously was when it was a lot quieter. But again, serious could happen. Say it again.
How big was the team?
I think there was 12. There was 12 UK analysts. So there was usually you'd be on a night shift on your own, but there was one night you'd cross over with somebody else.
Ooh, that's rough.
You mentioned
being on your own.
You mentioned with the shift pattern, the AJ, although it was obscure, the intention of it was to help reduce the burnout in analysts. How did you find that shift pattern actually worked? Was it helpful?
Yeah, I would say so. In terms of night shifts themselves, I wouldn't want to go back and do them now, to be honest. But at the time, they weren't too bad. And so what I was doing 7. The day shift was 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, and the night shift was 7 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. And like going through the night, very very quiet. Like you kind of, the way that I found it, I had to be really strict with myself. Like I tried to plan. I'd never done night shifts before. I didn't really know there was night shifts there. Yanis had mentioned that they were that long. I was like, man, these are 12-hour night shifts. He's like, yeah, just deal with it. It'll be fine. I was like, what the fuck did you tell me before then?
Left that important part out.
Yeah. But then again, it probably would have scared me off though. So for the right reason, I stayed. And yeah, what I found after the night shift, so you finish the shift at 7 o'clock in the morning, I cycle back to my flat. and then I try and sleep for like 3 or 4 hours and force myself to wake up. And so that day would be kind of rough. And then the day after that, then I had to wake up 8 o'clock, had to go to the gym, and then I'd feel okay after that. And then with the next kind of 4 full days, I'd feel great. So I wouldn't feel as burnt out. I'd go back to work and do the day shifts. Then the only time I really started to feel a bit burned out on nights was coming towards the end of it, and it was actually doing nights from home. Like to start with, it was quite good, and it was like, yeah, this is kind of cool, but it was just way too much watching TV. Like it was just, I wasn't doing anything like outside of like extracurriculum. I was just watching loads of episodes of TV on my night shift, and I would recommend don't do that. Find some kind of project to do, or do something that should be involved with what you're doing in work, really, because
it's probably worth explaining a bit why to the audience who might not be aware why we do 24/7 shifts, why SOCs need to, and it's because it's more to be reactive. It's not because Andy's out there reaching out to people. He's there in case they get attacked or compromised in the middle of the night, and time is of the essence. The quicker you can catch an attack and or a successful attack and respond to it, disrupt and contain it, the less of an impact it has. So when you're a big bank, you can pay to have 10, 20, 50 Andys who stay up all night for you, just in case. And
it is, yeah.
And sometimes you're just watching TV because you kind of you're running on fumes, right? Just trying, but you're there in case that you.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. I shouldn't make it out as if I wasn't doing any work. I was doing work, but the night shifts, like you have to have that some kind of expectation where they can't be full on during the night, because it's so strange staying up for 12 hours and then it comes to 7 o'clock in the morning and the sun's coming up, and then you're like, oh, I've got to go to bed now until 3 in the afternoon. It does affect you mentally. Like you have to really be quite strong in that. And your health. Like if you let it get to you, and if I wasn't exercising, wasn't like the way I was doing, I was still eating chicken, rice and veg even through the night. I wasn't drinking any coffee, drinking water. My one shift partner, another Greek guy, all my mates are Greek, and he was like, "How are you just drinking water through the night, man? What the hell is going on? Like, you just don't drink any coffee." He was like drinking like 10 cups of coffee. I was like, I'd never liked coffee when I'm on when I used to work a day shift, so I feel like it's probably not going to be good for me drinking it during the night. So yeah, I did that for 3 years, and then moved on to become kind of the last part of my story. Then become a incident response consultant. So companies come to me to try and it's all led into like what Josh was saying, that like the bank needed somebody to be there 24/7 to make sure that it didn't get breached. But if a breach did take place, day shift, night shift, then you'd have to follow the incident response plan to make sure that that breach was contained and kind of eradicated. So I took a lot of incident response experience from that role, and I became a consultant then, where a company will come to me, and usually what I'm doing at the moment is kind of just the main incident response. They're still doing some analyst stuff, but mostly incident response. If an incident happens, spinning up the incident room, working with all the different teams to make sure that the incident gets contained and eradicated, and people take the lessons away from it to improve next time, and also doing a bit of engineering work as well, in kind of building out detections in the detection engine in the SIEM and things like that. But that's kind of the basis of what I'm doing at the moment.
Awesome.
And that's a contract role you're working, right?
Yeah. So that I always remember actually being in the company that we've already mentioned. But our old director used to talk about these contract roles. I remember he's speaking to me, new Robbie, and he was telling me about these contract roles, and he was telling that like people were making like silly money and stuff like that. I was like, surely that can't be true. But it was a lot of people that were going down that path, and they're like just being contract roles. Like there's some side to it, like obviously with a contract role you get paid, and then if you take holidays you don't get paid and stuff like that, and the role might only last like 3 months and stuff like that. But those roles, when you build up the experience, they are available and you can get them, and I'm sure a lot of you will build up to that point where you do get into those roles. And that's why cybersecurity is great. Like the industry is there, and there is these roles where you have to take some risks. Like the risk is if that company decides that they don't need me anymore, then they can do that, and the day after I just move on and have to do something else. But yeah.
And I imagine with these contract roles, AJ, I haven't worked one personally myself, but I imagine they're very self-led. They're expecting you to come in and kind of pick up the slack and do all the roles and the tasks associated. So that kind of comes back to an earlier conversation about having your own kind of initiative to go off and perform different tasks and dabble in different areas. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why I've enjoyed it so much, actually, is that you're not kind of governed by this is your role, this is what you got to do. You're kind of told that you can come in, this is kind of the expectation of what we want. We want instant response. But then as I started talking to other members in the team, they need help with some of the engineering work, so I can jump in and help them with the engineering work, or if the analysts need help with closing out the alerts and things like that, I can also help them do that as well. So yeah, I like the variety definitely in the role itself. And yeah, like you say, you're not, because it is a contract role, like you're not necessarily governed by, like there is still people who you look to in terms of kind of like managers, but they're kind of doing their own thing and they're just making sure that what you're doing is what they need, and then they kind of leave you to it. And like that's the only one thing I would say. There's a lot of working on my own. So if it is a role that if you ever think about going into a contract role, you spend a lot of time by yourself, working from home. I really enjoy it.
That's the only child speaking within him.
Yeah, that is the only child speaking to me. Spending time on my own is something I've always enjoyed. So it's kind of the catch. Like I don't go to an office anymore. I rarely see many people. Like in terms of work, I'm quite lucky that I've got a good bunch of family and friends. But if it's one of those things where you don't enjoy being on your own, or you need that kind of strict authority where somebody's telling you, got to do this today, got to do that, then I probably wouldn't go down that role. And I'm sure there'd be another role, maybe more full-time employment that you might prefer instead. But yeah, that's kind of my journey. That is how I got into cybersecurity. I don't know if
yeah, I think I've probably just one. I know we're coming up to the end of the time we wanted to spend on this. But now you've clearly shown that kind of graph to get to where you are, the determination. So I think you've left some clues for us, but what makes you want to kind of share your experiences and share your knowledge as part of empirical training?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And
great question, Josh.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed sharing knowledge with other people and learning that from the mentors that I've had throughout the years. Like I've had a few. There's like Yanis. Can we name them? Are we okay to name?
Yeah.
Just say their first name. Yeah, there's Yanis. Obviously, Greg was amazing to me when I was in a managed service company, and then noticing what they did for me and how I felt at the time when I was starting in that company. Even Steph as well. Steph was fantastic to me as a
big
manager.
Up, Steph.
Fantastic. And noticing how they were towards
Des dog.
And Des, and noticing how good they were to me, I kind of wanted to reciprocate and kind of be able to give that back. And yeah, I think that kind of the way that I see it is that if you know something and then you can also show somebody else to do it, and then it kind of certifies that you definitely know it, and then if they use that and then they can achieve what they want to achieve with it. That's how I see it.
I think cybersecurity is
give as much back to
more than other jobs, and I'm sure there are other ones that beat this, but it's not about we're all against each other as cybersecurity analysts or professionals. It's a shared challenge that we're all facing together, and sharing our knowledge doesn't make us any less valuable or good at what we do. It brings the whole industry up. So this kind of collective defense initiative is what people often talk about.
I one of the group chats that we had at my previous company that me and Vaughan were at, there was a pinned message from me, and it said, "There's no such thing as a stupid question in this chat."
Yeah, and that's how it should be.
It shows that you got to leave your ego at the door and reach out for help if you need help. Like, don't just suffer in silence and like fall on your sword and just sit there and think, I don't want to embarrass myself in front of the team because I don't know this question. It's like we're all a team. We're all.
You're only failing yourself at that point. You're not going through that self growth.
Maybe that's. Sorry, go on.
I remember. I was going to say, Josh, I remember you saying to me when I remember coming to you when I started in the bank, and there was this like really smart guy, and he just seemed to like know everything. And I remember Josh just saying to me, he just goes, "Well, he just knows something that you don't know." And then after that, then I just stopped caring. I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, I just need to know what he knows, and then I can get on with the job."
Were you going to say that could be our tagline?
I was, yeah.
Josh?
I think that was it. Democratize knowledge. Maybe we should change it to there are no stupid questions. Let's get that pinned in our Discord. I know.
Yeah,
It's quite good actually.
Maybe just for the podcast, there are no stupid questions. We'll who can ask the stupidest question? That's a challenge for the four of us. And then
and wherever you're watching or listening to this, like just comment like some questions. Like there's literally no such thing as a stupid question. And also run up the bus emoji comments wherever you're watching.
Unless it's a really stupid question.
That'll be applauded. If it's so stupid we can't even answer it, and you've beaten us, you win. Mate, it's at least going to be a segment, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Class, man. Thank you for sharing,
cheers,
AJ
guys,
boy.
And, cheers everyone for listening. Problem. I think hopefully this has been insightful. We can dive back into this story if there's any parts you think were really interesting. We didn't do enough justice, because we could have talked to you for hours. We kind of almost have. So yeah, let's look forward to talking to the next one. See you all guys soon.
Thank you, gents.
And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, subscribe to the YouTube. We're struggling on YouTube.
Show some love.
Hit the bell.
Nice one.
Thanks, everyone. Catch you boys in a bit.